This one is on?
Yeah, it's on.
Ça, c'est la télécommande. Il faut qu'on appuie là-dessus.
Ça, c'est pour avancer. Alors, attends.
Ah non, ça doit être ce truc-là.
Devant. You start? J'enlève ma montre.
Je parle un quart d'heure, 10 minutes.
Oui,
10 minutes.
un quart d'heure, 10 minutes, un quart d'heure. On peut y aller?
Je sais pas.
Vas-y, présente-toi déjà. Mets le micro très près de ta bouche.
So welcome everyone. We shall start now. So I'm Eugénie Briot. I'm in charge of history and transmission at Givaudan.
And I'm Bernardo Covin. I'm in charge of niche perfumery at Givaudan in Europe. So we're super happy to be with you here today. So today we're going to talk about haute parfumerie at Givaudan, 90 years of history. But first of all, there are many words today to define the same thing. Haute parfumerie, niche perfumery, and artistic perfumery. In other times they had different meanings, but today we use indifferently these three words to talk about the same thing. So our talk today will be in 4 chapters. The first one will be about our heritage, which Eugénie will take you through. Basically, we officially start haute parfumerie at Givaudan in 1937. Then we'll have a look at what haute parfumerie is today. And then also we'll talk about Givaudan being a partner of choice in niche perfumery. And finally, we'll finish with current challenges that we see that the brands are facing today. So there we go.
Our heritage in haute parfumerie. So that's a beautiful program because it's a very rich heritage we have. And I'm going to try to explain you about the different steps that built the haute parfumerie landscape of today, let's say. So before 1920, only perfumers, in a way, created perfumes with such brands as Guerlain, with such brands as Roger Gallet also. Or Penhaligon's, and it was not a matter of diversification. They were perfumers, they created perfumers. And with Chanel, especially in 1921, the rules of the game started to change a little bit because it's the starting point. Chanel is not necessarily the first brand to have been existing in fashion and started to exist also in perfumery, but it's the first one who really built on one's brand to build another existence in the perfumery field and to kind of use the image of this brand as a fashion brand to exist also as a perfume brand. So that's a very key shift because it means that it started to a kind of storytelling started to exist with the image of the brand as helping sell the perfume. And when it comes to Chanel, it's very clear. It's all about black and white. It's all about straight lines and so on, fluid textiles. A brand such as Chanel can really bet on its own image to build the value of the perfumes they are going to create. So that's a first step in the organization of haute parfumerie. And the next one comes in the 30s with Rohr started creating perfumes for, Rohr being the ancestor, let's say, of Givaudan, starting creating perfumes for fashion designers. So the first major success in this respect is Shocking by Schiaparelli. Shocking is not the first perfume by Jean Carl. It's not either the first perfume by Elsa Schiaparelli, but Shocking is going to be a huge success, both in the States and in Europe. And it's going to change the rules of the game in a way with the starting point of a fragrance house creating perfumes for a fashion designer at this scale. So let's say the choice that Chanel had made, recruiting a perfumer with Ernest Beau, is now debated because it is obvious that a success can be built when you rely on a perfumer from Rohr to create your perfumes. And the success exists in the same way. So that's the starting point of perfume houses, let's say, maison de composition, and following the success of Chopin, all the fashion designers of that period relied on haute to create their perfumes, with Germaine Cellier, for instance, creating perfumes for Balmain or Piguet, with Jean Carl creating, again, perfumes for fashion brands such as Christian Dior, for instance, with Miss Dior, with Francis Fabron creating L'Air du Temps for Nina Ricci. The first perfumes of all these brands, fashion brands, were perfumes from the perfumers from Rouen. So you're going to smell Chopin by Schiaparelli, and also Fracas by Piguet, that are two beautiful creations. Chopin is very interesting in its complexity, let's say, when you have the opportunity to see the formula, the actual original formula of Chopin. It can look very short, let's say, but it's all about bases, and bases within bases within bases, and there are 9 levels of bases in Chopin. So at the end of the day, it reaches out a crazy amount of 100 pages of formula. So it's, of course, also a way to prevent counterfeiting at the time. But yes, when you rebuild the fragrance, it's a lot of work, definitely, from the technical perfumers. And you smell also Fracas, a beautiful creation by Germaine Cellier. As you know, Germaine Cellier was a woman of character. And with Fracas, yes, she created a perfume of character as well, with this, of course, tuberose being at the core of the creation, and this idea to give depth to this tuberose, using also little, let's say, unpleasant raw materials, such as celery, for instance, such as broom, and they really kind of play as a kind of counter proposition to the creaminess, the richness of the tuberose. So it's a beautiful balance with Fracas that is found there. And also the tuberose is used with other white flowers to make it shimmer in a way, and breath a little bit. So it's still a reference today on the market.
Just to say that what you're smelling are reconstitutions of the original fragrance. Of course, these are not on the market today. It took us months to reweigh a Chopin, for example, so what you're smelling today is quite unique.
Yes, it's also a tribute, of course, to the creativity of Jean-Carl and Germaine Cellier, but also to the hard work of technical perfumers that have such yes, a key position to maintain the beauty of these perfumes of the past, and to make sure the perfumes of today are still smelling the same tomorrow. So it's yes, a whole competency. And so the next step is coming with the development, the democratization, let's say, of these fashion brands, selling perfumes to wider parts of consumers. And these fashion designers, such as Nina Ricci, Robert Piguet, are followed by a new generation of fashion designers that really wants to spread more their products. And again, Rouen is there to develop their creations, with Calandre, for instance, in 1969, Rive Gauche for Yves Saint Laurent, and so on, first for Van Cleef & Arpels. But with Opium in 1977 comes a kind of turning point, because it is by this time that perfume is still, of course, the result of this kind of special match between a perfumer and a fashion designer or artistic director. And definitely for the development of Opium, there was a strong connection between Pierre Berger, Yves Saint Laurent, and Jean-Louis Sieuzac at Rouen. So there is still this type of creativity that can only emerge from such a direct dialogue between two creative minds. But Opium is also a turning point in the history of communication about perfumes. It's the biggest communication budget ever at the time of its launch, and it's going to change the rules because storytelling is going to take a larger part, let's say, to play a larger role in the decision to buy a perfume and in the building of the whole imagery you can have about a perfume. So following opium, it's the prestige market in a way that starts emerging. And as a counter-proposal to this spreading market, new prestige market, a niche perfumery emerges. It's a bit like if the universe had wanted to keep a kind of balance in this world, because 1977, opium is launched. 1978, l'artisan parfumeur launches Mûr et Musc. And of course, it's not the first, let's say, niche brand, but it's going to, this is this time in history that starts to have niche exist in a more significant way. And these brands are just bringing a kind of counter proposition to the market, a kind of counterculture of perfumery to the market, to a kind of mainstream market that is developing. So for me, it's really the definition of what is niche. It's a counter proposition to a mainstream market. And the next step is in 1992 at Givaudan, when Féminité du Bois was launched, because this niche perfumery started to exist really at Givaudan with the creation of this iconic perfume. So you're going to smell Féminité du Bois, that you all probably know very well, but that is such a pleasure to smell all the time. So Féminité du Bois is another turning point, because following Féminité du Bois, the whole Serge Lutens brand is going to be built. And it sets a kind of archetype of what niche can be to succeed right away on the market. It won't take the brand years and years to exist significantly on the market. It will work well right from the beginning with a very radical choice to exist in Les Salons du Palais Royal, Shiseido. In a way, the brand does everything that has not to be made if you want to launch a brand on the market, and that's why it succeeds, and that's why it starts to exist in such an interesting way. So Féminité du Bois is the start of a new era in perfumery with a whole, let's say, set of brands that are going to be launched following more or less this example, let's say, but of course choosing different positionings. And they all will have to choose something very specific to play on, to build on, to bring identity and a unique identity to the brand. Les Éditions de Parfum Frédéric Malle with this idea to sign the perfumes. État Libre d'Orange with this idea to be transgressive and to change the rules in terms of, okay, the themes that are a part of the perfumery world, and so on and so on. So Le Labo, Memo, Kilian, they all bring something different to the market, and they position themselves depending also on the others. And following this new market emerging, well, collections, private collections are also very soon going to exist with this idea to loop the loop and to have the fashion houses, the ones that were, let's say, becoming mainstream, exist also on this market, on this niche market, under their own brand with this special range, the private collections. So again, Givaudan was really part of the development of all these new brands of the market, with Prada in 2003, pioneering the concept, let's say, the Collection Privée by Christian Dior, Armani Privé in 2004, and so on and so on. So Tom Ford is going to be launched in 2007, existing on both markets at the same time, the prestige one and the private collection one, showing that it has become, let's say, obvious that a brand has to exist on both markets to build its image of creativity and to experiment on the one side, and to exist also sometimes more broadly, more widely on the prestige market. So that's the landscape, such as it still is today. And it's, yes, time when Bernardo is going to explain you more about the reality of things today.
Well, thank you very much, Eugénie. I'm just going to share with you a few figures about haute parfumerie today. We'll be very brief here. The first thing which is immediate is the amount of brands that exist on the market today. We have counted more than 800 brands and 80 private collections, each with a range from 5 to 15 or more fragrances. So it's a very crowded market. It's also a very dynamic market. It represented more than 40% of all fine fragrance launches last year. As we know, we estimate the market share to be between 10 and 15%. We don't have the exact figures. And so the amount of launches is much bigger than the market share of the market. So super dynamic, an 8 to 10 billion estimate of sales. And for us, the 4 key markets are clearly Western Europe, the States, the Gulf countries, and of course China, even if for the moment it's a bit more complicated on that market. So how do we today segment haute parfumerie? We actually see 2 key segments. The first one are the haute parfumerie brands, and it relates to what Eugénie told you. This segment was basically born in 2000, contemporary haute parfumerie, with these independent brands. And for example, like here we have Juliette Has a Gun, Ex Nihilo, or Maison Crivelli. The second segment are brands who, as soon as 1999, are going to be acquired by large groups. Jo Malone was the first brand to be bought by Estée Lauder, and it has never stopped ever since. So these brands, of course, don't have the same financial means, and so we put them in a different segment. Examples here, we have Diptyque, Kilian, or Comme des Garçons. The third segment is a new segment that we find very interesting, is what we have called access niche brands. And this access, we have one example. They have a stand here, and we have created together 5 fragrances. It's Essential Parfum, which offers exceptional quality at an exceptionally low price. And also, enhancing the perfumers who have created them. So this is really a new segment that we're seeing developing today. The second key segment, of course, are the private collections. We saw there are 80 private collections today. And as Eugénie mentioned it, for example, Prada and Dior and Tom Ford were among the top 3. So this is, I would say, the picture today. Now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Givaudan and what role we play in each of these segments. So, and also explain that we have created a bit of quite a few iconic fragrances, and many have been actually recognized with multiple awards. So, first of all, if we take independent haute parfumerie brands, in contemporary haute parfumerie, our story starts already in 2005 with Juliette Has a Gun, followed in 2006 with État Libre d'Orange, then a little bit later, Liquide Imaginaire in 2011, Ex Nihilo in 2014, and then new brands, Marc-Antoine Barrois, created out of scratch in 2016, our collaboration with Maison Crivelli, and more recently in 2023 with Amouage. So you can see that it's diverse. We have more today than 20 clients. We do not multiply our clients because we want to serve each one as well as possible. The second chapter, or the second part here, would be the haute parfumerie brands who are now been acquired by a group. And here again, the story started very soon. As you know, Eugénie told you about Femiti Dubois in 1992, which was then acquired. But very clearly, Kilian at the beginning from 2006, and then Diptyque, Joe Malone, and Comme des Garçons, just to mention those. And finally, in private collections, well, Givaudan was there since the beginning, because if you see the first 4 big brands here, Givaudan participated in every one of them. Prada was the pioneer when they launched their first exclusive line, sold exclusively in Prada stores. And only in 2024, we have, for example, Montblanc, Fendi, Balmain, and Lancôme, who have launched new collections. So, going through what Eugénie told you and seeing this haute parfumerie is really part of Givaudan's DNA. So what makes this possible? So the first thing, and just going to talk a bit about our perfumers. Today we have a global team of 40 fine fragrance perfumers. So it's a very rich and diverse team. We have nearly 20 in Paris. But as many also have gone through the Givaudan Perfumery School, they also have this DNA, this culture about haute parfumerie, all of them. So this also makes it very unique. The second point, which is very important, is the outstanding palette we have. Of course, the beautiful naturals we have with our Hors Pur. We have just created the House of Naturals. Also our differentiating captives. I know that our captives are very much envied because they really bring a very strong signature. And finally, we have unique biotech and synthetic ingredients, which are wonderful products to help the perfumers be really creative. So the third point is that we actually have today at Givaudan a dedicated haute parfumerie team with several people from all fields, commercial, evaluation, marketing. And of course, all this team is nourished and inspired by our consumer insights and also the marketing teams, which really nourish the perfumers with what's happening in the world. The fourth point, and which is very, very important, is the total creative freedom. In haute parfumerie, we really want to give our perfumers total freedom, and we open niche perfumery to everyone, regardless of their age or of their experience. We have actually we're launching in a few days a range of 9 fragrances by Liquide Imaginaire, which were created exclusively by the perfumery students of Givaudan before their graduation. So, and finally, I think it's still important to say so, is that our motto is really, when we develop with perfumers, we sit down with them. Today, and always we tell them, you need a strong identity, you have to be appealing as soon as from the top note, you have to exude luxury. The fragrance has to feel luxurious, and of course, you cannot launch anything which is nor powerful nor long-lasting. So that is very, very key. And the last point, which is something which goes back probably nearly 90 years, are these one-to-one relationships between a perfume on one side and a creative director or a brand owner on the other. And here we have the example of Germaine Cellier and Pierre Balmain. And in fact, these create intimate partnerships, and actually 1 + 1 very often equals 3, because they mutually enhance each other. And also, this way of working promotes working in a fun, kind, very harmonious way and mutually respectful environment. So for perfumers, it's really it's the best moment of their week is when they're working on these type of products. And these partnerships, of course, we have quite a few examples. Starting in 2006, for example, we have Antoine Maisondieu, who created more than 10 fragrances for État Libre d'Orange. Calice Becker with Kilian, I think they created more than 20 together. Olivier Pecheux, who unfortunately is no longer with us, but who created absolutely masterpieces directed by Myriam Badaud. Yann Vanier, very close to Céline Roux at Joe Malone. Rodrigo based in New York with Carlos Huber on Artiste, Louise Turner with Sylvie Laudet at Ex Nihilo, and Nathalie Chetto with Christian Astugveil, for example, with Rouge comme des garçons. And also we have our young perfumer Gael Montero, who's worked closely with this Italian brand, Merchant of Venice, here with Marco Vidal. And I'm going to finish by two partnerships that we're actually going to re-smell the fragrances. The first one is Tilia. Tilia from Quentin Biche worked with Marc-Antoine Barrois. As you know, Marc-Antoine Barrois is a brand that was founded at Givaudan. The two met and they got along extremely well. This is Quentin's fourth fragrance, Tilia 2024, a very beautiful, naturalistic, floral fragrance, which has an absolutely amazing trail. So I chose to show you to smell this one today. And the next one you will smell is our partnership that we have developed with Thibaut Crivelli at Maison Crivelli, and the series of 3 oud fragrances. Here we have the Oud Maracuja, which has gained an iconic status. So we will be smelling these two fragrances. So these partnerships are really very key. Of course, not all clients work this way, but when we can promote these encounters, it is absolutely wonderful, because even for our young perfumers, when they're exposed to a talented creative director, it really makes them, better people, and together they really create miracles. So this is a little bit of the picture of what we do at Givaudan today. Nevertheless, and just by seeing today the size of Aix-en-Provence, there are some challenges today. Is that the market, there are a lot of brands on the market today. So taking today into consideration that there are more than 800 brands, 80 collections, haute parfumerie brands or niche brands today, they clearly need to, and more than ever, reaffirm their identity, their DNA. Who are they? They really have to be different from what is on the market. Also, very important, they need to increase permanently their perceived value. As you know, there has been some inflation in retail prices in the last few years. So when you're spending 250 euros on a bottle of fragrance, you really have the consumer has to perceive that he's buying the value more for the value of the product. And the third point, also for those who are present in stores, is to offer an exceptional customer experience. So these 3 things, brands, we find that they should never forget this, because there is a lot of competition out there. So this being said, there's an urgent need to stand out. And I have a little wink to John Lim, because I think he found the exact name, Born to Stand Out. Today, brands need really to stand out through a unique brand concept and be extremely daring. So even if you already have an established brand, you have to find a way to talk about it which is different from the others. The second point is stand out through an immersive retail experience. The way, for example, Amouage has redone its stores today and enhanced the experience to exude this true Omani luxury, but in a contemporary way, is a very remarkable example. The third point would be to showcase your heritage. There are a lot of beautiful haute parfumerie brands who have been there for a long time, you know, Santa Maria Novella, or even Diptyque from 1968, which have chosen, here we have the example of Diptyque, Maison Diptyque in Paris, there's one in London, and they actually have a heritage gallery. And here they're showing, you can see these notebooks from the founders, and they were counting the number of candles they had in stock, so it was really artisanal, but it shows really how things were made in those times, the original designs of the Diptyque logo. So it's very important, whatever your brand, to showcase. If you have a heritage, really put it, because today consumers are really looking for authenticity, and it has to really feel real. The next part is that today, more than ever, you have to be daring. We're in a market, a niche market today where there are a lot of dupes out there, so you have to really be creative, be audacious, but at the same time, you need to create notes which will be pleasing. I mean, just being creative for the sake of being creative will not, well, you can make a buzz, but today it's important to be creative, unique, and also, of course, appealing. And here we have, you know, some examples in-house from Blanche Bête, from Louise Turner, Liquide Imaginaire, the Tilly that you smelt, and I would say a more daring Odeur 10 comme des garçons, where you can really see the profile of its art director, Christian Estuc-Vieille, who worked with Nathalie Chetto on it. So this is really very, very important. And also, what we have realized is that, as you all know, prices have substantially increased. And 2024 was the year of the extracts, explosion of extracts. Actually, the premiumization, the power, the increased power, it actually came from prestige perfumery, because a lot of brands started to make perfume for men, Acqua di Gio, Chanel, then Sauvage, and even if you go even back 10 years, a product comme La Vie est Belle was a true power bomb. And niche perfumery sometimes was a little bit staying backwards. As an example, here we have everything which has been launched today on the market, but I take here an example, Maison Crivelli. When we started working with him in 2017, he had the idea to go exclusively with extracts, and here he was quite a visionary, because we started working, and today we work only on extracts with him, and today they are all over the place. But this is also helps also justify, you know, the selling price and also the quality. And people today really want to go noticed. And this brings me to the next point, is that actually the consumer of niche today has changed. Today, the Gen Z is absolutely key, and this we have to thank our influencers. I see we have Emma here, but there are many others. The Gen Z, and especially, I mean, if you talk to store owners, a lot of the people who go to buy and smell are kids under 20. I call them kids, but they're also extremely savvy and well-informed, because there are a lot of, you know, other influencers who are also extremely professional and well-informed, and who are there to talk about fragrance and who explain fragrance extremely well. So this new generation has very often traded off, you know, I would say a special edition tennis shoes for a bottle of fragrance, even if a very expensive one, and then they will mix and match, but they are clearly there. And they have their own tastes too, so you have to also cater to their tastes. This is a real shift in the market today. And the final point, and this is also due, and I must say this is a tribute to them, it's influencers. So sorry, Emma, I didn't know you were going to be here, but I put you up here with 3 other examples. There were many, many we wanted to put here. The idea here is today, influencers are actually the best sales reps for haute parfumerie or for niche brands. And this is the way products come out and emerge on the market. Take an example, Bianco Latte. Absolutely, you know, it became a buzz thanks to some people, but it became a bestseller, and the brand, this is thanks only to the power of influencers. So it's very important too, when you're launching a niche brand or a new product, to get influencers involved, explain to them, and go in depth with them beyond, of course, and this goes along with traditional journalists who are also extremely knowledgeable people, but it's the duo of these two which really help promote the fragrance, and they, the boom on the market is very much due to them. So I think we owe them also a very big thank you. So I think this is about it. So looking at 2025, well, we're continuing our creative journey, a lot of work, and well, we hope to see you next year, and we're open to questions. All good? Yes, the thing is, how do you get the mystery known? And I think I mean, you have to find the right balance. I can give you, you're absolutely right. For example, you know, if we look at Delina, Delina has entered this year the top 30 in the US, along with, before that, Baccarat Rouge and Aventus. They started very small because they had these incredible, so it's true, but in the end, even if the brand is well known, it is still used only by a fraction of people, because if you look even in the prestige market, the very top sellers, they only represent a small potential of the whole cake. So you're right in that sense. But so some brands choose to be super confidential, and it's only by appointment only, but everyone has their own positioning. But I think today, the objective also of brands is getting known and, in the end, selling too, because the idea you have to sell. So influencers really help. And of course, it has the consequence that some products will become superstars. We don't exactly know how this happens. There's this magic. There are products who all of a sudden acquire cult status. I think it's a combination of truly creative notes, which are very long-lasting and powerful, and they meet their clientele, and a true love from influencers.
The brands to have longevity. How can you influence people into making a brand a household name? Because we see a lot of brands getting launched year by year by year, but in like after 5 years, they're practically dead or off the market. So how can you pass also that part of the equation?
Well, that's a very, very good question. First of all, this is also why we don't work with that many brands, because it takes time to create a beautiful niche fragrance. And really, in our motto is we want to create fragrances which are going to stand the test of time. And this is why we also privilege these one-to-one relationships, because, you know, when you create this friendship in the end with the brand, this fidelity, and it's whatever the fragrance house, these associations allow also for the brand to be perennial and to have a longevity. And we are really very careful when we're developing to always, you know, ask the perfumer, does your fragrance smell the price it costs on the market? Is it powerful? We really try, because the idea, you know, when we start working on niche project, there is absolutely no financial issue. We're not there to make money. The first purpose is to allow perfumers to fully express themselves and do creations. And maybe in the end, we're going to sell 20 kilos or 50 kilos of perfume. We take risks, but they're fun risks to take, and we try to have a good time. Sometimes we're very lucky, sometimes we're less lucky, but we really try to really give quality, as a motto, really give quality there. And it's also a question of, you know, how you get along with the person who's developing the brand. There really needs to be this partnership, this friendship, and when that is there, it gives you more chance of success. It doesn't mean that every product from every brand works well. Some work much better than others, and so this is still the mystery of creation.
I have a question for Antoine again. Bernardo, sorry, again. It's about when you put together different perfumers on a project. How does it work? Is it asked by the client sometimes, or is it you who decides what's the dream team to work on that particular project? It seems to happen more and more that there's more than one perfumer on a project. Well,
you're absolutely right. So it's common today, but more on prestige fragrances, that you will have a team of 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5 perfumers who are going to work, you know, on a let's say a blockbuster, but also they're going to work on it for a long time, and you need to, you know, relay each other, and it also helps you work for long periods of time. In niche perfumery, we have a few cases where several perfumers work at the same time for the same project and are going to submit different creative ideas. But the most common idea is to choose or suggest to the brand, or the brand asks to work with a perfumer, or suggest a perfumer for one project, and giving, you know, a chance to each other. So it's really very variable, but we try, the way we ideally like to work with is with one perfumer, or if it's with several, I would say on an exclusive basis, because the idea here is to create an in-depth relationship and not to be, you know, competitive. If you want to, you know, access a nice talent, it's great to develop, you know, a one-to-one exclusive relationship, at least for that project. Doesn't mean for all the projects, but when a brand decides to give a perfumer a project, the perfumer also feels completely responsible. He has a responsibility on his shoulders to create something exceptional, because it's his name who's there. And so this is really why we try to limit the number of perfumers working on a single project. And also, you know, niche for them is perfumers' holidays in a very positive way, because they can really express, you know, their true self.
Great, thank you so much. 2 different approaches then.
have a question about pricing. It seems prices are getting really high for some perfumes. You have some that have gone up by maybe $100 in the last 2 years. And I'm just curious, how does that work? Is it just supply and demand? People are willing to pay and so they charge more? Or are the materials getting more expensive? Yeah.
Actually, there are quite a few ways of talking about this. It depends also how the brands work. We have some brands, niche brands, which I think is the perfect way to follow, is the starting point is the fragrance. So they will give you no limit, and the perfumer can create what he wants at the cost he imagines. These cases do exist, not always. Usually we're given a budget. Many brands have understood that the market being premiumized year after year, many brands have invested more money in the fragrance oil, so they're putting each year more money. Of course, there has been inflation in raw materials since COVID, and also a scarcity of raw materials, so that's very important, but also, increased concentration. So on a general point of view, today, niche brands are investing more or much more in fragrance. So then again, each brand has a marketing policy, which I do not know. If they decide to sell at this price, 300, 400, 100, that is their strategy. So this is not to do with us. What I can tell you is that, we really tell brands, as you know, the fragrance in itself is key to repurchasing into. So it has to be a key point of investment. And then again, we don't say this for us, because if we're going to sell 100 kilos, it's not going to change our life. What we want is to offer products which really, stand the test of time. And money is not everything, but money really helps, because it allows you to overdose captives, overdose beautiful raw materials. A classic brand like Diptyque understood this very, very well. And when Olivier Pecheux created with Myriam Badaud, it was no limits, and which allows you to have really incredible, long-lasting fragrances.
Just a follow-up question to that. When you say the perfumer is given a budget, do you mean the perfumer can decide how much the end perfume costs, or just a budget for the materials?
No. The perfumer, no. We only develop fragrances. So a perfumer, if we tell him, okay, you have no limits, but he will impose himself some limits, because he's not completely, disconnected from the world. He will create a fragrance which he thinks is the most beautiful one at a price. Of course, we can have the discussion with the brand owner or creative director along, so that he doesn't fall from his chair at the end. So that's one thing. But in some cases, we are given a budget, so the perfumer has to limit himself to the budget. But what I told you at the beginning is that this budget has substantially increased. A lot of brands understood that today what makes the point of difference is the quality of the fragrance, and also its long-lastingness. So thank God, a lot of brands have really invested in the fragrance.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. We are talking about niche fragrances and niche perfumery, but I wanted to ask, so the small, real niche houses like indie that produce small batches, what do you think it will be the best for them to get in touch with suppliers of ingredients, because it's very difficult for a small house to buy like 10 liters of, I don't know, something. Do you think it will be an approach also for small niche houses to get ingredients?
You mean ingredients or finished? You mean work?
Ingredients of not a finished product, of ingredients like raw materials. Think so.
Yeah, well, it's true that Givaudan, as all other fragrance houses, we also sell some ingredients, except our captives that we keep for ourselves. And usually I think we have a series of distributors who distribute them in small volumes. But normally the clients we work with, we will actually compound the fragrance for them, so they don't need to buy it. Here, I think you're talking about a different business model, which is when you're creating yourself the fragrance. Is that what you mean?
Yes, yes.
I don't really know. You know, it's.
Thank you so much.
We have, you know, their clients we've worked with, and we created 20 kilos of fragrance oil, and we were very happy to do it. So the quantity is not an issue. What is the issue today is the number of clients we can, and partners, because they're beyond clients, they're partners, and we can't service everyone because we have limited resources, and we can't expand in, you know, I would love to tomorrow double the amount of brands we're working with. There are at least 20 we would love to work with, but we need to have the resources to do it. And we already have a lot of resources.
We are out of time.
I think we're running out of time. We're over time 9 minutes, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.